Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Westoven, Chief of Program Services at the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar on the 2022 K-12 School Safety Grant Program. This session is intended for schools that are on our grant award list, and its purpose is to share with you what to expect in receiving and using these grant funds. School safety is an important topic, and we were pleased to offer this funding to keep students safe and others in the school as well. This was a competitive grant program, and even with $100 million in funding, we received more applications than we had available funding, actually from over 2,000 schools. So if you're listening because you're on the award list, I would like to congratulate you on your award. This session will cover some information on the program background. We will also share with you how you'll be notified and what kind of system notifications to expect. More information about the type of grant you're receiving your funds, the process and the timing of that. And then these last two bullet points, we actually have separate webinars on them, on procurement and on monitoring and reporting, but we'll touch briefly on both of those. This is a government program, and so no government program would be without its own acronyms. We're no exception here. So these are some of the ones that we're going to use in this session, some which are maybe very familiar with to you. Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, that's our agency. The Ohio School Safety Center is a division of the Ohio Department of Public Safety, and it has provided support for this program and many other programs related to public safety and school safety. The Ohio Office of Budget Management is the fiscal office for the state of Ohio, and within OBM is the Ohio Grants Partnership. That's the central hub for information on state and federal grants available to those in Ohio. You would have applied for this program through the OGP grant portal. And then similarly, when we talk about reporting later, that reporting will also flow through OGP. AEL is a term specific to this grant program. It's the authorized equipment list. That represents the list of 44 categories of items that this grant money can be used for. UEI is an identifier that's used to do business with the federal government. It's a 12-character alphanumeric value that's generated at sam.gov, and that's the official government-operated website for management of federal government awards. I had mentioned earlier this is $100 million in ARPA, using another acronym there, American Rescue Plan Act funds, for grants of up to $100,000 per school. And the 100 million has been divided into two groups. The 42 million was distributed already to 1,065 schools that were applicants to our previous 2021 program. The remainder of the 100 million, which is about 58 million, is for applicants to this program that we're going to talk about today. Of course, overall for both programs, the statewide goal is to establish a minimum level of security measures for all schools. And we're doing that consistent with another acronym here, Partnership Alliance for Safer Schools. Their guidelines are in tiers. This would be aligning with Tier 1. Tier 1 is the basic level of safety measures for schools. The equipment list aligns with past Tier 1, and all purchases from this grant program would be made from that same authorized equipment list. As far as notification, we would have published a list of potential awardees, and within those awardees, most of those applications were complete. In other words, we are able to move ahead with payment. If your application and payment information is complete, there was a person that you identified in the application that's your grant contact. They would receive a system email from OGP with wording very similar to this. This is your notification of award. Accepting this award amount will execute the grant agreement. As you recall, in the grant application, there was a separate attachment that you submitted with signed terms and conditions. So by accepting this, that's your acceptance of the full award. You'll get an award number in that email, and you'll use that for grant reporting later. It'll be longer than that, but that's some of the common elements that'll be in the notice. If for whatever reason your application was not complete, but not something that affected the competitive advantage of your application, then you'll receive a different email from either OFCC or OGP with the information needed to continue. One example of this is on the terms and conditions. There is a space for a name of grantee. That's intended to be the name of your school. In some cases, people put the name of the school official there. We'll need to cure that, so send you back a new terms and conditions to execute. And then once we have that, then we can proceed with the payment process. These are advanced payment grants. These are not reimbursement grants. So you will actually receive payment shortly after you receive that notification. It's set up as one payment per district or district-like entity. And so if you're a private school, ESC, if you're a community school, you'll receive one payment in one agreement. These grants will essentially be prepared for payment as soon as OBM has received your UEI. How you receive payment depends on how your setup is with the state. If you are set up as a state of Ohio supplier with your own ID and you've established banking with that supplier ID, then you can receive payments, the grant payment electronically through electronic funds transfer. If you don't have a supplier ID set up, or if you do and it doesn't have a banking associated with it, then the state can process your grant by check, issue a check, then mail that to you. However, if you do wish to receive funds electronically, the website address is here at supplier.ohio.gov, and you can get registered as a supplier. Once the payments are released, you can expect to see deposit within 10 business days. Again, that's for the electronic side of things. OBM will pay the amount to the applicant. Again, there'd be one payment per district or school. If you're a district and you have, let's say, 5 schools, it'll be one payment for all 5. And we will, again, use the payment information that is on file with the state of Ohio. On procurement, so this is dealing with how you would purchase things that are on that AEL. Some things to note, of course, they have to be items that are on the AEL, purchased consistent with federal procurement guidelines. And you'll see some deadlines here. Eligible purchases would be made on or after January 1st of 2022. They have to be under contract by December 31st of 2023, and then completed by September 30th of 2024. There will be much more detail about these items in the OBM Federal Procurement webinar, but we're going to mention a few on the next slide as far as highlights. Competition is an element of any government contract. Federal contracts are no different. The format of the competition, the requirement for competition really depends upon several things, and one of those is the size of the purchase. The larger the size of the purchase, the more formal the process will be. That's explained in the webinar. Also, written procurement procedures. Each entity, you should already have essentially written procurement procedures, but those may be different than state or federal guidelines. Typically, the most restrictive of those procedures is the one that applies. So to give an example, let's say locally, your procurement procedures allow you to do a sole source or a single entity, but the state procedures require 2 quotes and the federal requires 3. The requirement then would be to use the most restrictive or do 3 quotes because that satisfies all 3 of those entities. Auditors will, as they go through this, they will take a look at how you have performed based on what your written procedures are. So they'll check against that. Another element is authorized sources. The federal government does have countries or vendors that it does not do business with. So there are lists out there. Those sources are available. Pay particular attention to telecom or video surveillance equipment. There are listed vendors that are not allowed to be, money is not allowed to be used with them on federal funding contracts. There are also preferences like Buy America, domestic preferences that are listed in the procurement webinar. And then finally, it's always important to keep records of the process, the quotes, and anything for auditing purposes. The reporting for these grants also go through the OGP portal. There's a requirement for quarterly reporting, which would go on through either the end of the performance period, which would be 2024, or whenever the money is finally spent. You, as the grant administrator or grant contact, would receive notification from OGP when reports are due. And so the earliest would be end of this calendar year, early first quarter of next year. Some of the requirements, though, in advance of that are to track and inventory and tag any equipment that's purchased with these federal funds. So you want to maintain property and cost records. If you're a district and you have multiple schools that receive grants, you want to track that by school IRN because there is a maximum of $100,000 per school, and you want to make sure that you're staying within that threshold. Again, there's going to be a webinar on monitoring and reporting at a later date, which will give much more detail on this. So if you do have questions, this is the division of responsibilities among our entities here. The Ohio Grants Partnership is the place to go to for questions on procurement, requirements, federal reporting, payment items. If you have questions on authorized equipment, let's say you're considering a purchase and you want to see whether it fits into one of the categories in authorized equipment list, please reach out to the Ohio School Safety Center. And then for all of the questions, feel free to contact us at the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. Again, congratulations on your award. Thanks for your participation today and have a good day.